New Orleans Saints at the Tennessee Titans. This is a game in which all three of us have a play. Rare that this is the case, but all three of us looking at this game right here. Right now, the Saints are 2.5 to 3 point road underdogs to the Titans, a total of 44.5 to 45 in this one. Steven, Brad, I'm going to start with you because you are playing the total in this one, and you think maybe that there were too many points in this thing.
I like this one quite a lot. So first of all, the last two Saints totals have been buried under. And I know that because I was on both of them and lost both bets, right? But the against the Bucks, it went 51 down to 48, and they flew over. And there was some weird stuff in there, like penalties, extending drives that went for touchdowns. Then last week, 44.5, they opened against the Falcons, buried down to 42. There was like 10 points at half time, and then they scored, I think, 35 or something in the fourth quarter. That goes over as well. The Saints, to me, are still a dead net under. They got an elite defense, sort of top five by DVOA. They run the ball in one of the they're one of the most run heavy teams in the league. They've got no wide receivers. They've got a backup quarterback. They might not have Alvin Kamara here. So like, what do you have? It's probably the Mark Ingram show. I don't think they're going to be moving the ball that effectively, especially against a Titans defense, which is fifth in DVOA over the last 5 weeks now. People still have this perception that it's bad, right? Because it was bad all last year. It was bad to start the season. But they are like the perfect modern defense. The front four is absolutely savage. Like Harold Landry, D'Amico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons. Like they're as good as it gets. And then they can just put 7 behind it, and they cover well. So I think I don't see the Saints doing that much with the ball. And then I'm still not convinced by the Titans last week. Tannehill didn't do that much against the Rams. And then, as I said, the Saints are very good. I feel like we're going to see a lot of Adrian Peterson for 2 yards, fail to convert on third down, punt away and repeat. So, under 45 is I think still about in the market. I think that's quite a strong play.
Yeah, definitely a smart play. Good look on that one. Stephen and I are opposite on this one. I am on the Tennessee side here. I took Tennessee at 2.5 as the favorite in this thing. I was getting out ahead of what I think is some kind of writing on the wall about the status of Alvin Kamara here. There were rumblings coming from beat writers that he was a little bit nicked up and that he was kind of feeling some stuff from the game this past week. Then the Saints did a very telling thing. They went out and worked out 3 running backs this week, and then they signed one of them to their practice squad as well. And so they did something in the early part of the week that typically teams don't do unless there's at least some sort of issue. They didn't have to sign a guy early on in the week. They could have waited till later in the week, but they decided to do that early on. And so I'm kind of reading the tea leaves here that Alvin Kamara, even if he does play, is not completely healthy. And with this offense in the state that it's in right now, without Alvin Kamara out there, it is a bottom 6 unit maybe in the entire NFL. He's the only guy that's been a consistent playmaker for them. And with that, I don't see any way in the world they're going to be able to move the ball through the air because, as Brad, as you just mentioned, this Titans defense has started getting pressure on the quarterback. Now, Trevor Siemian is overall for the whole season, they now moved into the top 10 in pressure rate on quarterbacks, and it's even higher over the last month of the season as well. And so now Trevor Siemian feeling tons of pressure is going to beat me through the air here in some way, shape, or form. Like that's just not going to happen. And like, as you mentioned, they just want to plod along on the ground. Eventually they will get stopped. And if you're only asking me to cover a field goal here, 2.5 points, that I've only got to win this thing by a field goal against the Saints offense that, again, I consider as a bottom 8 unit with Kamara, bottom 5 unit without him. I'll go ahead and take that as it is. This is not recency bias for me. This is not me riding the train here of the Titans and all that. This is strictly more of a play against the Saints and what they're going to be fielding and how they play offense in today's NFL. Steven, I know you were on the Saints side, so tell us why you're wrong.
Here's the thing, Matt. I do agree with you that Alvin Kamara is a huge factor in this equation this week, right? Because Alvin Kamara is everything to that offense. So everything I'm about to say about the Saints is contingent on Alvin Kamara playing in this game. And I do think he's possibly banged up. I think it's also why they might have traded for Mark Ingram a couple of weeks ago if he's been playing banged up. So again, everything that I'm about to mention here to try and back the Saints is if Kamara plays. I haven't made a bet yet because of that. So let's see if he does play. If he does, these are the reasons why I like New Orleans. If you look at just the spread based on closing numbers, it doesn't really make a ton of sense. If you look at common opponents like we did with the Lions, the Saints were -6 playing the Seahawks without Russell Wilson. So let's say Russ plays. That's a pick 'em or Saints like a 1-point dog. The Titans were 6.5-point dogs against Seattle with Russell Wilson. Granted, it was earlier in the season, so maybe you want a more recent example. New Orleans was 5.5-point dog on a neutral to Tampa Bay. Tennessee was a 5.5, 6-point dog on a neutral to the Rams. So even if you rate the Rams and the Bucs as basically equal, you would conclude that New Orleans and Tennessee should basically be equal or near a pick 'em on a neutral field based on this math. So if this is moving towards a flat field goal for Tennessee in this game, and home field, last time we checked, is not worth 3 points, then I like New Orleans as a 3-point dog here if I'm getting the full 3 at a flat -110. When Tennessee has the ball, they're the number 16 DVOA offense, and they're facing the number 3 DVOA defense. By PFF grades, number 11 PFF offense versus the Saints, number 4 PFF defense. And more concerning for the Titans offense, 18th in early down success rate against a Saints defense that's 3rd in early down success rate. So again, Alvin Kamara has to be playing for me to make this bet, but I like New Orleans if I'm getting the flat 3. If I can't, I like them with Alvin Kamara playing at a +8.5 teaser leg as well. If we're getting 2.5 on the spread.
Yeah, I listen. It's hard for me to disagree with the stuff that you said there, but I mean, the comparison of spreads, I've never bought into any of that stuff. I mean, like they happen in different parts of the season. And teams are the health of the team at the time when the thing happened is completely different than it is now. And all it's. I mean, I understand it's a good baseline, I guess, to kind of go off of things like that, but I've never really used that in any sort of my handicapping in the years because again, I just think that there's a lot of misleading stuff that goes on there. You don't really remember exactly what was going on in week 3 of the NFL at the time compared to week 10. I mean, unless you have a steel trap memory, which maybe you do, but I don't remember exactly every single thing and every single injury report that was going on and in the various weeks whenever these teams were playing and how that was all going. And plus our idea of what these teams may or may not be, I think could also change. Yeah,
you and I handicap differently, right? Like I look at that more than you do. And listen, I think both of us would agree based on the way the Titans have played and the opponents they have beaten in recent weeks. We understand why they're a field goal favorite in this game. It's just a different handicapping style.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is I think that the Adrian Peterson, I mean, the injury situation for the Titans actually in this specific game probably plays into their favor because you don't want to be running the ball into ridiculous line of the New Orleans Saints. And so it's like they're going to not have a choice but to go to the air, which by the way, they're much easier to pass on than they are to run the ball on. They don't get any pressure on the quarterback either. So Tannehill should in theory have a decent little pocket and have a decent chance to sit back there and kind of pick this apart. Julio did look at least healthy this past week. So they've got that going for them as well.